Good morning and almost good afternoon to all of our site members and guest attendees today. My name is Sandra Masters, and we're just thrilled to have Greg Johnson from IEA here to present a session on LinkedIn for Training. It is not a job search tool, so very, very thrilled that he's going to share his expertise with us. And usually like to come on just a few moments early to say hi to everyone, make a few announcements, and find out, do we have anyone brand new to a site webinar? Is this your first site webinar? Let me know. You could use the question box. And we don't assume that people know how to use the GoToWebinar tool. This may be your first GoToWebinar, but I'll go over a few housekeeping items for you. So first up, mark your calendar for December 8th. We have Jordana Robinson from Great American Insurance Group presenting a session on considerations in becoming a provider for Adjuster CE. So we hope that you can join us for that session. And an invite will be going out in a couple of weeks on that. Also, you want to mark your calendar, and I know registration usually is open by the end of the year, and we're looking for exhibitors and sponsors and all of that for our annual conference in Spokane, Washington, June 24th through the 26th of 2018. So hopefully you can join us. Training That Excites, I really like that logo. And hopefully you can join us. Spokane, I've traveled all over this United States, but Spokane was really one of my favorite cities. It's right there on the Idaho border, and it's just such a beautiful area to visit. So if you can get that in your budget for next year, we always have a great time, lots of great sessions, and we're going to be at the Davenport Hotel, which is renovated, so it's going to be really nice. All right, just a few things about for those that are brand new and don't know how to use the control panel. If you're using a PC, you probably see a little orange arrow somewhere on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can click that orange arrow to open and close the control panel. And right now, be sure to download the handout. There's a little gray bar that says handouts in your control panel, and download that handout. The audio, you could use mic and speakers or telephone. If you're having trouble with the VoIP using mic and speakers, you may consider switching to the telephone. Also, if you want that control panel to stay open, I usually tell people to click on the view menu at the top and uncheck the auto hide, because then this little control panel stays open and you can enter your questions into the question box, and we use that quite a bit during the session. Again, if you have trouble with the audio, you could switch to the telephone, and then make sure you put in that audio pin, because that's what allows us to unmute you. And we do like to keep an open dialogue with our attendees, and unmute lines. Right now you're all muted, but you can always raise your hand. There's a question box where you can enter your comments, and if it's something that's great to share with the entire group, I'll share it with the entire group. Otherwise, they come private to me, and so your questions are great all throughout the session. Just use the question box, and you've got the little raise your hand button there, and we might do some quick polls where we'll say, hey, have you ever had this experience? Raise your hand. So you know where that little raise hand button is. So now that you know where the raise hand button is, give me a little raise hand if you're ready to go. All right, thank you, Dorothy, Amy, Ashish, great, Carolyn, good. All right, so, well, we've got a few more announcements. Let me just also let you know. We are excited if we've got some brand new people here, the Society of Insurance Trainers and Educators. We're glad that you're here with us today, and we want you to consider ways to get involved with SITE, whether it's by joining SITE as a member, or if you're a member, finding a way to grow more with SITE by getting involved. So SITE has unlimited benefits of membership, and as you can see on the screen, we'd love for you to get connected today. SITE's a great place to network with people in a similar role as yours, and professional networking has a way of becoming a great tool when you least expect it. The relationship you sow today may yield success in the future. So visit our website, www.insurancetrainers.org, for membership information and contacts if you have any questions, and we hope that you will join us. All right, so now I'm very excited to turn things over to Greg. Welcome back to SITE, Greg.
Well, thank you very much. Can you everyone see my screen okay?
Looks great.
Okay, excellent. Well, LinkedIn is something that I've been teaching quite a bit over the last 10 years, and rarely do I have a class that's only 1 hour, so there's a lot of material packed in here. We're going to try to keep moving and cover as much material as we can, but if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. What I'd like to do is go ahead and start off. Sandy, can you go ahead and do the first poll question?
Sure. There we go. So when you hear the word LinkedIn, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And just all you have to do is click on the screen. It looks like you can choose more than one, but maybe just pick the first one that comes to mind. We'll see what we get. Not for me, job search, branding, networking, learning. We usually like to get to about 85% voting just to get everyone in here right away. We're at 84, so someone give me one more vote. What are you thinking? All right, let's share the results. And it looks like 75% are networking. And behind that, job search, 13%. And then 6% say not for me, and 6% say learning. And then nobody said branding. Isn't that interesting?
Very, very interesting. I'm not surprised about the large number of job search, and I'm not even surprised that someone said not for me. The reality is people don't truly understand what LinkedIn is and what it has to offer. When I teach LinkedIn, I keep telling people, number one, it's not a job search tool. Number two, it's much more important than just putting up a profile and networking. There are so many aspects that make LinkedIn a powerful career management tool. And one of those things is learning. There are so many things you can do on LinkedIn for learning, and we're going to be talking about some of those, which is why I think it's a very powerful tool for trainers. Also, branding is one of the most important things you can be doing on LinkedIn. So I'm not surprised by what people are thinking, but that's based on what just everyone hears about how to use LinkedIn. Can you go ahead and do the second poll?
Sure. All right. How much time do you spend on LinkedIn? Less than 30 minutes a week, 30 to 60 minutes, 2 to 3 hours, 4+ hours. We'll do this one a little bit faster, so get your log in there. Last chance to weigh in. All right, here we go. Looks like 50% less than 30 minutes a week and 44% 30 to 60 minutes per week, and then 6% 4+ hours. Nobody said 2 to 3 hours per week.
That's interesting. I'm interested. Someone who said 4+ hours. That's quite a bit of time, especially for someone who's working full time. But in my frame of mind, that's also time well spent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not surprised by 50% or 30 minutes or less. Some of the things that I teach you today, I hope will open your eyes as far as what you can use on LinkedIn to as a learning tool that will help you become a better subject matter expert in your areas that you train in, but also in areas of adult learning, e-learning, and all the things that site focuses on and teaches. So let's go ahead and do the third poll question.
Okay, here we go. How many connections do you have on LinkedIn? Do not know, less than 200, 2 to 500, over 500. Wow, we got to 95% this time. Last chance to weigh in? All right.
Excellent.
Okay, so we've got 21, well, let me share the results. 21% do not know, 37% less than 200, 30% 2 to 500, 11% over 500.
Okay, well, LinkedIn is something that allows you to do what I call create mind share.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates visibility in your market, and it also gives you access to information to people that are peers as well as experts in your industry. And so for the power of LinkedIn to really work, it is critical that you have over 500 connections on LinkedIn. Most people do not think of it that way. They think, well, I really only want to connect with people that I know, or that are, they think about they have to have specific reasons to connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been very good for me in that I've connected with a lot of people that I had never met, and a lot of those people we've been able to cultivate and develop relationships that worked into very, very successful business opportunities. So having a large number of connections on LinkedIn will significantly help. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. So today's objectives are to understand how to strategically apply standard components of LinkedIn for better training. So we're going to talk about today, how do you use LinkedIn to grow your brand? How do you use LinkedIn to become a brand ambassador of your company? Because one of my thought processes is we as employees of companies should be using LinkedIn to be a brand ambassador for our company. How to grow and articulate your subject matter expertise. This is one of the most critical aspects of LinkedIn. Then cultivating mind share in your network and your target audience so people see you as a trusted thought leader in your arena. And then using LinkedIn to build your knowledge base. So using LinkedIn to grow your brand. What is the key to building your brand? Most people focus on what they know. They focus on their experience. How many, raise your hand if you heard of the saying, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Most everyone's raising their hand.
Great. Most everyone's raising their hand. Well, I take it a step further. In terms of branding, it's not what you know, and it's not who you know. And in terms of creating opportunity, it's who knows you
Ooh.
and what is their perception of you as a professional, as a trusted thought leader, as someone who brings value to an organization. Your goal on LinkedIn is to become a trusted thought leader in the area of training, adult education, e-learning, but also in the areas that you do train in insurance and other specific technical aspects of your training. And LinkedIn is a tremendous tool to build that so that people that you've never even worked with know who you are. So building brand equity. I would like to call on someone randomly, and I'm going to choose Carolyn Rivera. Can you unmute Carolyn Rivera?
Oh boy. Here we go, Carolyn. How are you doing,
Okay, and
Carolyn?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
yes, we can. I apologize if there's noise in the background. We have the gardening crew outside our office building doing the lawn, so I apologize
And
if
your
that noise
mic
is
is great.
disturbing.
Your headset's great because we don't hear any of that, so you're fine.
Awesome,
I don't
I
hear
didn't need
it.
to say anything. Okay, Carolyn, can you give me the name of a fast food restaurant?
McDonald's.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, go ahead and unmute Carolyn or mute Carolyn, and let's see. Let's choose Mark Fine.
Ha! Past president. Yay, Mark. How you doing,
How are
Mark?
you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Excellent. Can you name an athletic apparel company?
Athletic apparel. Under Armour.
Under Armour. Okay, very good. Okay, go ahead and mute Mark, I mean. Okay. You didn't choose the one that I was thinking of. But the reality is, if you ask 100 people to name a fast food restaurant, the most common answer will be McDonald's. If you ask someone to name an athletic apparel company, the most common answer will be Nike. It may not be a majority, but it will be the most common answer. What is it that these companies have in common? Does anyone have any ideas as to what these companies have in common?
And you can use your
Nicole?
question box just to enter what you think these companies have in common. There we go. Look at this. Evelyn is saying good branding. Carolyn says marketing strategy and branding. Mary, recognized logos. Amy, branding. Kimberly, strong branding. Angela, big marketing budgets. Patrick, they know how to tell a story. I like that.
They know how to tell a story. That's really critical. But they have what I call mind share. So when you ask a large group of people to name something, these companies are the first companies that come to mind. And that's what building your brand is about. You want to get mind share so that you become the first company that is thought of. Does that make sense? Okay. Most people brand themselves as widgets rather than being a special, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank right now. Luxury item. Really, the difference between Diamond and Kohl is Diamond's handled stress exceptionally well. They're basically the same thing, but a lump of coal is burned and consumed and thrown out. How are you branding yourself with the experiences that you have, with the passions that you have, that you can use to create unique value to the organizations that you're working with? So most companies and most people, when they brand themselves, they talk about what it is they do. Some companies talk about how they do it. Very few companies and very few people are able to articulate why they do what they do. When you look at a typical PC, when they're branding, they manufacture, they brand themselves, their commercial, their message is, we make a great PC, we make a great computer, but there isn't much differentiation. But when you look at Apple and what it is that what their message is basically saying, our mission is to completely change the status quo. We aim to change how people entertain themselves. We need to change how people educate themselves. We need to change how people communicate. How do we do that? We happen to make easy to use, very well designed computers, phones, etc., etc. Their message is, and someone was talking about they know how to tell a story. Their message is telling why they do what they do. Most people, when they buy an Apple product, they buy it because they don't want anything else. I happen to have a Dell computer. Why did I buy that Dell computer? It happened to be the best price with the configuration I needed at the store I was shopping at. I didn't set out to buy a Dell. But no one buys an Apple on accident. Okay. raise your hand if you have an Apple computer.
I would say about 5 people have
Yeah,
raised their hands.
about
6
5
people.
of them.
Hmm.
Okay. Raise your hand again if you'd be willing to trade your Apple computer for someone that has any old PC.
I see
No one.
a lot of blanks.
Absolutely. So when you're branding yourself, you need to brand yourself not as a widget, not as a commodity, but as that special individual that's going to provide unique value. And in order to do that, you need to understand your why. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Simon Sinek. Okay, there's a few people. Great. If you do a Google search on Simon Sinek, and I'm not sure of the spelling, but if you don't spell it right, Google is very intelligent and will get that to you. And there is a TED Talk that he has on why. And that is a really good talk on understanding the importance of understanding your passion, understanding your why, and understanding that people do not buy what you do, but why you do it. And that is what you need to do in terms of your branding. So in building a personal brand, the components that go into it, you need to talk about, first of all, why you do what you do, how do you do it, what's your style, and then get into the specifics of what it is you do. It's also important to understand your value. What's the value of what it is that you do? Your training, how does that help the employees of the organization, or how does that help your students to either perform better, to help the company generate more revenue, help the company reduce costs, or help the company mitigate risks? Because everything that we do as employees has to do one of those three things. If you don't understand what you're doing to the company and how you're helping the company mitigate risks, how you're helping the company reduce costs, and how you're helping the company increase revenue, you don't know what your value is, and then it's hard to really maintain your security and keep your job, because if you don't know what your value is, chances are your company doesn't know what your value is. Then SME, subject matter expertise. Now, everyone here is committed to growing their subject matter expertise. That's why you're a member of SITE. You also understand the value of training. This is your profession. So right now I'm speaking to the choir, but one of the things that I'd like you to understand is when you're putting together your brand on your LinkedIn profile, articulating what your subject matter expertise is, but also articulating how are you continuing to grow in your subject matter expertise? How are you continuing to expand your subject matter expertise? Because the reality is, in our career, as long as we are growing our knowledge, growing our subject matter expertise, we're going to be performing better with the organizations that we are representing. And then finally, what are you known for? What's your reputation? Are there any questions so far on this?
Yeah, be sure to enter your questions all along, and comments are welcome. I've shared a couple of comments that came in as well. So watch your chat stream, and no questions at this point.
Okay. So in terms of your goal, the goal of your LinkedIn profile is primarily to articulate your branding, build and articulate your subject matter expertise, and then to create visibility. The more visible you are, the more mind share you have, the more opportunities will come to you, and that's going to be better for you and your organization. So in terms of putting together your profile, on your header, optimizing it for visibility and for branding, there's a couple of things that are critical to think about. Number one is your name, and I have the purple triangle around it, your name should not have your email address, your phone number, your title, meaning your position, your company position. However, if you have degrees or certifications, absolutely put those alphabet designations after your name. Sandy, do you have your designations after your name on your LinkedIn profile?
I believe I have CPCU, ARM, and then ITP, Insurance Training Professional.
Excellent, excellent. And there's a lot of people that through their career, they have a maiden name, get married, or things change. And so in order to be found, it is good to have the names. And in LinkedIn, there's a place to put maiden name, or and then it puts brackets around it. Your headline, you need to have your title as to what it is you're doing, but also put in a branding statement as to the value you add to the organization for what it is that you do. You should have a professionally shot headshot. In terms of personal branding, just putting up a snapshot doesn't necessarily convey that you are taking your professional brand seriously. Okay, there's a question, what about those that without degrees who have expertise? Definitely put that in your headline section. That shouldn't be in your name, but put it in the section that I have just below that right here in the purple. Make sure that you can add that in there. And it should be your photo should be a good face view. Your LinkedIn URL, when you join LinkedIn, you have your name plus a bunch of numbers after it. One of the things you should do is customize your LinkedIn URL to limit it to what your name is. And you might be thinking, what if I have a common name like Greg Johnson and there's only about 25,000 Greg Johnsons on LinkedIn? I did it early enough that I was able to add my initial to my LinkedIn URL. But in this case, you can also put your area of expertise. You can put, you could add your designations after it, but you could also say corporate trainer, John Smith, corporate trainer, in your URL. And then when you customize your URL, what are you going to do with it? Because your URL, if you don't know what that is your your address for your LinkedIn profile, your web address for your LinkedIn profile. So you should put that on your business card. You should have that on your email signature line, and whatever other collateral you have that you send out that you communicate with people. Okay, you need to have 500 plus connections, and it's not that difficult to connect to 500 people. Just one of the challenges is getting over the thought, well, I have to know people that I connect with. But the reality is the power of LinkedIn is creating visibility, and the more connections you have, the more visible you will be. And then finally, the hero image is the color image that I have behind my picture. Now you might be wondering, I started off saying that I work with IEA. I'm actually the fractional director of marketing and operations with the IEA, and I am also a career coach. So my LinkedIn profile is focused more on that. So I have my header focused a little bit more on that, including my hero image, to help generate my business on my side. Okay, In terms of your summary, this is a piece of real estate that most people significantly underutilize. Because people think of this as a job search tool, what they will often do is put just their opening paragraph from their resume. They'll cut and paste from their resume and put that in there. You should have so much more in here. Talk about why you do what you do. What is your passion? Talk about the value you bring to your organization. Articulate what your subject matter expertise is. What are you known for? And finally, a tagline that speaks to the value that you have. I would also add a quote, putting in a quote talking about, from some famous individual, and a lot of you might choose something from the training industry or something about learning or the value of learning that really helps to articulate the value you represent in your brand. Then on top of that, you need to have your name, and I have this on the bottom of my LinkedIn profile, title. Again, I have tagline in twice. I shouldn't have done that. And then have a contact information. Why do you want to have your contact information in here? If someone is looking for you and they're not a first degree connection, they don't have access to your contact information. So I would suggest that you have your contact information, which would include your email address. And as long as you are working for an employer, I would have your employee email address here. But at the same time, for your LinkedIn profile, your primary email address that LinkedIn is attached to, please do not make that your employer email address, because people change companies and you want to be able to maintain control of your LinkedIn profile. Also, if you are ever putting your personal email address on here, there are some email addresses that I would avoid. Go ahead and put in the question box some email addresses that you think, some email carriers that you might avoid putting on your public profile on LinkedIn.
I'm thinking like Hotmail.
Yes, AOL, good. Yahoo, Hotmail, very good. Okay, and the reason why you don't want to have those is because that says you've been on the internet an awfully long time, and also says you're comfortable with not changing. You should also have professional email names, email addresses. So a few years back, I was working, volunteering, and doing resume critiques. And an individual who was a programmer in the aerospace industry had an email address on his resume, beerbongchamp@hotmail.com. That's not necessarily the most professional email address, and he was wondering why he wasn't getting callbacks. And I said, well, why are you choosing that? He said, that's my heyday from college. And I said, dude, you're in your 40s. If you haven't done anything better since your beer bong champ days, and we've got other issues to address. So yeah, be cognizant of what email address you use, but primarily while you are employed, on your summary here, I would suggest that you use your employer email address. Okay, there's also a question here. What about vendors who are always trying to connect? I had read somewhere that you shouldn't accept invites from random vendors that likely got your name from other contacts. Well, my thought is those vendors sometime down the road could be a valuable resource, because there's point in times where you might want to investigate vendors. But one of the things that I learned, and what I did when I was looking for vendors, is I reached out to my LinkedIn community and I asked, I am looking to do this within my organization, and I'm looking at these vendors. Does anyone have any experience using these vendors? I would like to have a chat with you. Keep in mind, I don't want to hear from any vendors. So I was able to talk with a number of different people that had very good feedback and very good experiences to share, or valuable experiences to share. Not all of them were good experiences, that helped me make a decision as to who I was going to use. When I reach out to vendors to get information, can you give me some testimonials, or can I talk to people? They're going to hand pick people, and I don't necessarily want that to be hand picked. So those are things that you can do. But the other thing is, a lot of people worry about, for example, if vendors are connecting with you, maybe they're mining your contact list. Well, if you have a small number of contacts, that's going to be easier to mine. I have well over 4,000 connections, first degree connections on LinkedIn. If someone is going to go in and try to find and mine my contacts, it's going to be a little more challenging, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Plus, you
Okay.
can keep your connections private, and then they would only see the connections that you have in common if you decide to keep your connections private. What do you recommend with respect to keeping?
There are some professions where I recommend it be private. Attorneys, psychologists, marriage and family therapists, where they have confidentiality. I would recommend in those cases that those be private. But in most cases, in terms of leveraging your network, it's most productive to have it public. Okay, and within this space, you have 2,000 characters, so take the time to tell a story. Build the narrative that's going to help you to develop the mind share. The other thing is, on the new user interface, by default, the first 2 lines are what show up. So make those first 2 lines count on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, moving on. Within your work history, you should have your job title, but keep in mind, when you're creating a resume, and this is how this is different from a resume, your resume job title should be exactly what you have on as your official job title. But here, have your official job title, but have some descriptive words after it that talk about, or even add some additional titles that represent what it is you do, or what the title might be at a different company. So you can talk about training and name some of the areas that you focus on in training. Think about your SEO. Think about, well, the reality is you have 120 characters, so you can use that. In the summary, again, focus on why you do what you do. Have your subject matter expertise. What are you known for? What are your accomplishments? What's your value? Think about your branding. One important thing that I like to say is also break up into blocks so you have a lot of white space. Most people, when they put in their information, it is very crunched together and it's hard to read. You also don't want to have laundry lists of bullet points. If you have a list that is more than 5 bullet points, it's hard for people to take the time to read. You can see I have blocks and I have several areas of bullet points, but I have them broken up into sections where they're not very long. The other thing you can do is underneath my profile there, you can see that I have some media that's uploaded. You can upload photographs of some of your training sessions. You can upload some simple PowerPoint presentations, of course, redacting any proprietary confidential information. There are a number of things that you can do. Also, you can put a link to some of your blogs of what it is you're blogging about within your training. Quick question. Can you raise your hand if you currently blog? Okay, no one. This is something that you really might seriously think about in terms of generating your expertise and articulating your expertise in training and the areas in which you're training. A lot of people think, I don't have enough expertise to blog, but the reality is once you start blogging, you're going to be doing some reading. You're going to be doing some stuff to update your information, and that's going to force you to be on the cutting edge. And then finally, when you are blogging, and I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, your blogs don't have to be information that is completely brand new. You just have to put your spin on things that you're saying. Okay, and then you should have recommendations for each position that you list. Okay, in terms of your accomplishments, these are areas that you can demonstrate your relevance in the market. You need to talk about what professional learning are you doing? What certifications do you have? Talk about what professional memberships you belong to. Talk about patents you might have, projects you might have completed, and some of your projects could include courses you're creating, or it could include putting in new systems for your company to be able to deliver better education. What awards have you won? And check this and see what other areas there are in terms of accomplishments that you can use to brand yourself. Let me see something real quick. Okay. So the next is growing and how to grow and articulate your subject matter expertise. Jim Rohn said, a formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. One of the things that I really strive for when I'm working with my clients is to say, what are you doing to continuously grow? What are you reading every single day? Going to specific formal courses is excellent, but what are you doing outside of that? And so there's a lot of things that you can be doing in terms of growing your knowledge base. What professional publications are you reading? What industry newsletters are you reading? What thought leaders are you following in social media? Please raise your hand if you use Twitter for work. Okay, Kimberly, congratulations. You deserve a star. Okay, Twitter is a phenomenal resource for following thought leaders and subject matter experts that you can get. I get on my phone every single morning. I have a list of subject matter experts that have published something, and I'll choose 2 to 3 articles a day to read that I know as soon as I wake up in the morning what I'm going to read that day. So that's very powerful. And then finally, online learning. Why don't we do the poll question on LinkedIn Learning?
All right, let's look here. There we go, launch. Are you using LinkedIn Learning? Yes or no? And if you've never heard of it before, raise your hand. I'm curious. Now you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a handful of people that have not heard of LinkedIn Learning. Oh my gosh, phenomenal. All right.
Okay, yeah, I'm not surprised that you haven't heard because When I teach my weekly LinkedIn class, one of the things that I always say is the eyes do not see what the mind does not know. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know something is there, you're not going to look for it.
Right.
But LinkedIn is a tremendously valuable resource, and the LinkedIn Learning has courses about so many different things that some of the courses are pretty elementary, especially relating to your area of subject matter expertise, but just taking it and allowing you to put a badge on your LinkedIn profile that you've taken that and that you have that. And it validates what you've already learned by doing your work professionally. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about LinkedIn Learning. So basically, to get to LinkedIn Learning, all you need to do is click that box on the side there. You go into LinkedIn Learning. You have skills that you're interested in. So you can show all the skills. I can edit it. I can add skills to it. And so this is going to help them give you suggestions as to what it is you may learn. You can show courses that you're in progress in teaching, instructional designing. These are courses that I've saved for myself to take in the future. And then the other thing you can do is look down and see what courses do they recommend based on the skills that you said you would like to improve on. Then once you take courses, it puts badges on your LinkedIn profile. So I'm going to scroll down to my LinkedIn profile. Took a while for this to load when I was recording this. And it shows certifications. Whoops. Shows certifications here. Okay. So these are things, and these are something you might think about within your work environment, within your training. Does the platform you have enable you to connect to LinkedIn and allow users to put these badges on their profile to verify what it is that they have learned? So cultivating mind share in your network and your target audience. How many groups should you belong to on LinkedIn? I generally recommend between 40 and 50. You might think 40 and 50. Wow, how am I going to manage that? Well, the reality is you need to prioritize. So what I do is I prioritize what groups am I going to visit on a daily basis and participate, what groups am I going to participate on a weekly basis, and what groups am I going to participate on a whenever basis. So there's usually 2 groups that I try to be active in on a daily basis, 10 groups that I try to be active in on a weekly basis, and the rest I get to whenever I get to. Then the next thing I do is I set up my email within each one so that in the ones I'm active on a daily basis, I get a daily digest. The ones I'm active in on a weekly basis, I get a weekly digest. And the ones that I'm active in on a whenever basis, I turn off the email. Then you need to read industry trends and best practices. This is one of the best places to keep on top of what are trends and best practices within your industry, within your function. And you do want to be reading this stuff inside and outside of LinkedIn. Then you want to engage with the communication. So when you see a post, share your thoughts on that post. Comment on it. Don't just like, but comment. Why do you like it? Ask questions. When someone has a good idea, give credit. And then if you see discussions in one group that you'd like to share in another group, go ahead and share it in another group. When you have information from the professional associations that you belong to, for example, CITE, share that information to the groups. And also, now that you all know the importance of blogging, not if you blog, but when you blog, share your blog in the different groups. What types of groups should you belong to? First of all, you should belong to professional and industry association groups. You should belong to alumni association groups. You should belong to community groups and also interest groups. For example, if you are into kayaking, join a kayaking group, because you never know what kind of people you'll meet in those and what opportunities that will lead to. Raise your hand, or you know what? We have a poll question on this. Can you do the poll question on site?
Are you a LinkedIn site group member? Yes or no? And if you're not, the first thing you want to do is connect with Greg Johnson at the conclusion of this webinar, but you also want to join the Site LinkedIn group as one of your 40 to 50. So let's see here, last chance to weigh in. So look at this, we still have 57% of the people on this program today are not part of the Site LinkedIn group. So you've got something to do.
Raise your hand if you didn't know Site had a LinkedIn group. Okay, there's a few hands going up. Okay, so you can't join something you don't know about.
Right.
Now you know about it, there's no excuse. So like Sandy says, make sure you join this and then start participating in the group. One of the things that in creating mind share within your niche market, getting involved, looking at, for example, Sandra Coley wrote an article on utilizing virtual reality for claims adjuster training. And these are things that are changing our industry. We should be involved in it. Read these, then comment on it. Great articles on a daily and weekly basis to come in and take a look. I do know that Mark regularly contributes here. Mark Fine does. I believe you do as well, Sandy?
Oh, it's been a while, so I'm inspired now to go share some thoughts.
Okay,
so thank you.
Good. Sharing thoughts is, a lot of people think, why would someone be interested in my thoughts? Well, a lot of your thoughts are really good. So share your thoughts, but keep in mind, share in a positive manner and share professionally. Okay, and then the other thing is, when you contribute, ask questions, share best practices that you've learned, and then cultivate relationships. And the more you share, again, LinkedIn in the past has recognized people for being top contributors to groups. They don't do that currently. But the reality is, the more you share in these groups, the more mind share you create. And like I talked about with the 3 brands at the top of the workshop, you really want to be able to create mind share where you are recognized in your network. Someone wrote a comment, I'm new to the insurance industry, so excited to find it. Excellent. Thank you very much, Carolyn. Okay. I've gotten to most of what I really want to cover, but there's a few things in terms of engaging with your network that I'd like to share, and it'll take a few minutes. But if you have questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to use the question box and we'll get started on that. Okay, connections. Engagement starts with the invitation. Unfortunately, most people, when they invite someone to connect on LinkedIn, they just click the connect button without personalizing the invitation. It's my philosophy that it is critical from a professional standpoint to personalize all invitations. First reason is not doing it. Branzio is lazy. It says, hey, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn, but I'm too lazy to tell you why, or too lazy to tell you who I am, or what we have in common, and the reality is, if you just get a blind invitation from someone you've never even heard of, most people's reaction is, well, I don't know who that is. Why would I want to accept it? And you hit ignore. So to build the connections, it's best to personalize the invitation. Also, all invitations can be referred to for later engagement. This gives you context for all of your future engagement. When you meet someone at a networking event, and then 6 months later, you need to reach out to ask them a question about something. you could refer back to when you first met and said, we're connected on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if you remember, we met at such and such, we met at the national conference in Minnesota 2 years ago. And you can refer back to that and they're going to think, wow, you remembered me, or wow, you took the time to figure out who I am, and they'll be much more likely to respond. So how do you personalize the invitation? There are some places on LinkedIn, if you hit the connect button, it automatically sends that generic non-personalized invitation. You don't want to do that. So the first thing that you want to do is go to their profile and hit the connect button. Now, sometimes you will see not a connect button, but send an in-mail button. And you think, oh, wow, I can't connect. Do you see the 3 dots just to the right of Sharon's picture? Raise your hand if you see the 3 dots just to the right of Sharon's picture. Okay, excellent. Most people are seeing it. That is a More menu. If you click that, you will have an opportunity to connect. But anyway, click Add a Note, type in, and then send the invitation. On mobile apps, you might be thinking, I'm at an event, I want to connect with this person, and I want to connect with them, but it sends a generic non-personalized invitation. What can I do? Click the More menu. Hit Personalize Invite. Type it in. Now, a couple of things you need to be careful of. Autocorrect will change things even if you're typing what you want to type. And big thumb syndrome will also cause errors. So make sure that you read it before you send it, because what you're sending might not be what you thought you typed because autocorrect changed it. Okay, so profile goals engagement. When people look at your profile, what should you do? Look at their profile, check their profile, and engage. If they are already a connection, reach out to them. Say, hey, thanks for taking the time to visit my profile. Hope all's well. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. If they are not a connection, they went to your profile for a reason. Reach out to them, hit the connect button from their profile, not from here, but from their profile. Then say to them, hey, thanks for taking the time to visit my profile. How did you find my profile? Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. I would like to add you to my professional network. That creates a lot of engagement opportunities. So when you're also within your network, LinkedIn gives you notification of people with birthdays, with work anniversaries, with new jobs. And I get a lot of people that complain and say, why is LinkedIn giving me this useless information? This is gold. This is an opportunity to engage with people in your network on at least a once-a-year basis. So when people have birthdays, send a birthday wish. Well, what if I don't know who they are? Well, they still deserve a good birthday, so wish them happy birthday, but personalize it a little bit. I have a friend who started doing it. He's a real estate agent. He has over 8,000 connections on LinkedIn. The person he sent this one birthday wish to, he didn't know who that individual was. That person wrote back and said, hey, my wife and I are thinking of selling our house. Would you be interested in listing it for us? So because he sent a birthday wish, he ended up with a $30,000 commission.
That's incredible.
When people have new jobs, congratulate them on the new jobs. Start the engagement process. With work anniversaries, congratulate them on the work anniversary. Personalize it, but have the engagement. When people comment on posts you wrote, engage with them. When people comment on posts you commented on, keep involved in the fabric of that conversation. Build your mind share. The other thing is, you want to wait until you need something to reach out to people. If you're engaging with people on a regular basis, when you have a need to reach out to someone, if you're constantly engaging, they'll be much more likely to respond positively. So this is a tool that is no longer promoted on LinkedIn. It's called Share on LinkedIn, or it's called the LinkedIn Bookmarklet. there are many times you're going to read articles, and most articles will have sharing icons for most social media, including LinkedIn, but not everyone does. So if you install this on Chrome, if you use Chrome, it's linkedin.com/bookmarklet. You can find it. Or if you can't remember this and you can't find it, you can Google, how do I find the LinkedIn sharing tool for Chrome? That will help you find it. But when you go to an article and I want to share this article, if I click on my browser, share on LinkedIn, what this does is it pulls up a dialog box. It gives me the article title, a photo from the article, a quick synopsis. Then I add my comment and I say, where do I want to share it? Do I want to share it as an update? Do I want to post it to groups? Give my thoughts on it. Never share an article without giving your thoughts on it. Why did you read it? Why did you think it was good? What was your key takeaway? And then share that on LinkedIn. Now, also when you're sharing on LinkedIn, how often do you share and what should you share? Basically, you should share once or twice a day. You have up to 400 characters to tell your story. What are things you should share? You should share links to your professional subject matter expertise content that you're reading on a regular basis. You should share company information and updates. Share professional association meetings. And finally, when you have a speaking engagement, share that information. I was teaching LinkedIn at a local church. I shared this, and in 2 days, I had 2,472 views of that post. It creates a lot of visibility and a lot of credibility for what it is that I do. It also tells who were some of the people. So I had 9 people from GE. I had 145 people with the title of salesperson, and my biggest audience was from Orange County. Well, that's to be expected because I live in Orange County. Also, you can write articles. This is an article I wrote after LinkedIn started changing its user interface, and a lot of people were complaining. So I wrote an article saying, hey, LinkedIn moved my cheese. And I really enjoyed the experience of this article. This post shows that it was shared, that was clicked 628 times. But what this does is it allows you to establish your subject matter expertise. It validates the skills that you have on your profile. So if you say you have skills on your profile and then you're writing about it, it validates that. It also demonstrates your professional thought process. It helps you to build your reputation, and it gives you mind share. So when I did this, 630 views, 17 comments, 79 likes. I actually looked at this last night, and it had over 840 views, 60-something comments. And the thing that I was most proud of, my article was shared over 57 times, including overseas, once in Spain and once in German. So I could read the comments from the people in Spain who were commenting in Spanish. So I used Google Translate to find out what people in Spain were saying about me in Spanish and saying about the article. And it was rather cool. So it creates a broader audience to establish your visibility, establish your credibility, articulate your subject matter expertise. So one of my favorite quotes is Alvin Toffler, Future Shock. In 1975 wrote, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those that cannot read and write, but those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Start working on this today. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Greg, for a great session. We are at the end of our time, and I know people are taking off as their schedule demands them, but we'll stick around for a few minutes. Terry does have a question. Would you recommend the premium version of LinkedIn?
Great question. If your company is willing to pay for it, yes. For the most part, I don't think it's necessary. I think if you use the strategies that we went over today, you can get the benefit you need from LinkedIn without paying the premium, and paying the premium may add to that a little bit, it's basically these strategies that will give you the most impact on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I notice I pay for LinkedIn Learning because I just love the examples that I get of good video
Okay, LinkedIn
programs.
Learning is
Yeah.
worth it. I'm going to make this worth the price of admission. Sandy, do you have a library card?
Oh, yes.
Go to your library, check their online database, and see if they have membership with lynda.com. If you do, you can get a free membership with lynda.com, then transfer all your, connect that with what you have existing at linkedin.com, and then you don't need to keep paying for it.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, we got to look.
So check your local library and see what they have, if they have access to that. And if you do, what is it, $21 a month? It's a fee that is extremely worthwhile. But if you can get it without that, why
Right.
not?
Absolutely. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your time and talents with site members. And I know we're connected, and I hope you get some more site member connections and will serve as their mentor if they have any questions on LinkedIn. And we're just so thankful for you sharing today.
Absolutely.
So great.